Hey guys, how you going? My name is Dom and welcome to today's video where we're going to be building a tic-tac-toe game using pure HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So there's going to be no frameworks or libraries involved in the code today, aside from potentially using an icon library. Now, you might be wondering, Dom, why aren't we using a library or framework? Well, the answer is, in my opinion, the best way to learn has got to be without using a framework or library. Okay, so obviously today's video is going to be tailored mainly towards people who either are just starting out to learn HTML, CSS and JavaScript, or you're more experienced and you just want to see a different perspective when it comes to building these kinds of apps or games using vanilla JS, and overall it's just a good learning experience. Okay, so the topics covered in today's video are going to be quite a few things. So on the JavaScript side, we're going to be taking advantage of ES6 quite a bit. We're going to be using ES6 modules, template strings and arrow functions, just to name a few. We're going to be using JavaScript events, so passing through event handlers and things like that. When it comes to CSS, we're going to be using the Flex Box as well as the Grid system, and as a general thing, we're going to be using the MVC or Model View Controller pattern, as well as the block element modifier CSS class naming convention. Okay, so if any of those things interest you, definitely stick around and take a look at how we're going to be using these things right here to build this tic-tac-toe game. So let's jump right into the code itself and how to actually build what you're seeing right there. Okay, so the first step here is to open up a new directory called tic-tac-toe within your text editor of choice. So for example here, I've got Visual Studio Code. Now, I also recommend you install in VS Code the live server extension just to get a development server running, and this right here is going to allow you to view the application, and also it's going to automatically refresh when you make changes. So once you have this one right here installed, we can then go back inside the directory here, and we can say F1 and we can say open with live server. So now you're going to see your browser is going to open up and you're going to get essentially a server for your application directory. So now it's going to be as simple as adding in a few files and making everything work. So let's go inside here and make a new directory for CSS and also one for JavaScript right here. We can also make an indexed HTML, and this will be the main entry point for the application. Let's include the HTML template and call this something like tic-tac-toe. We can now create a new file inside CSS, so main.css, and also one for JS for main.js. These will be the two main entry points for CSS and JavaScript. We can now go back inside here and just link up the two files, CSS, so we can say CSS, then main.css, and also down here script source for, of course, JS, and then main.js right here. And since we're going to be using JavaScript modules, we need to say right here a type of module. Okay, and now we can do one last step, and that is to create a new div with an ID of app, and this right here is going to be the main container for the application itself. And just so you guys know, I'm going to be including the source code for this in the description below, so if you want to reference the code as you watch the video, then definitely feel free to do so. So now we have all of the CSS, the JS and the live server running, we can now continue and get to the main parts of building this tic-tac-toe game. So let's begin with the main.js file right here. So this main.js is going to be the main controller, which is going to combine both the view and also the model for the tic-tac-toe game. So we're going to have a class which is going to represent the view and the display of the game board and everything else itself, and also another class. And this second class is going to be the one which is going to contain all of the game logic, so it's going to be the model. So we're going to begin with the class containing the logic, of course this one being the model itself. So let's go inside here and make a new file. We're going to call this one game.js, and this game.js is going to represent a single game of tic-tac-toe, and it's going to be a class. So we're going to say here export default class called game. And this right here, we can now define a constructor, and inside here, we're going to define what happens when you start a new game of tic-tac-toe. So we're going to say inside here, this.turn is equal to x, and then this.board is equal to a new array of 9 elements right here. We're going to say .fill and pass in null. So basically, the starting turn is going to be x. Obviously, this can be x or o. It's up to you. In my case, I'm going to choose x. And then the starting board is going to be an an array of 9 elements. So this is going to represent a 3 by 3 board. And the default value is going to be null because, of course, when you start a new game, there have been no moves that have been made. So it's going to be an empty board. So now, saving this right here, we can now import in the main.js, we can import game from ./game.js. And now we can create a new instance of the game itself, and we can simply console.log game.turn and also game.board just to see what's actually happening right now. So saving this and going inside the browser, we can see right here we get nothing. Let's just reload this and see how we go. So there we go. So we've got x right here as the first character or as the first turn, and we have our empty board right here, our 9 element array. So now let's implement a method to switch turns. Okay, so going back inside here, let's make a new method here called next turn, and this next turn is going to simply toggle the turn of the game. So we can say here this.turn is equal to this.turn is equal to x, then let's make it O, otherwise let's make it x. So basically, if the current turn is x, then make it O. If the current turn is O, then make it x. So now saving this and going back inside here, we can quite simply console log the turn twice, and in between these, we can say game.nextTurn to simply toggle that turn. Let's save this and back inside the browser, we get x and 0 inside the console, and that's working perfectly fine. So now, let's implement a makeMove method. So going back inside here, let's make a new method here called makeMove. This will take in an index. So basically, we're going to set the index of this board array to be the current turn. So we're going to say right here, this.board at index I is equal to this.turn. And then we can say this.nextTurn to simply toggle the turn. So now let's save this and go inside the main.js and do a bit of testing. So we're going to say right here, console log the turn. And then we're going to simply say game.makeMove, and we're going to pass in something like 0, for example. And then we're going to do this, let's just do it 2 times, this time being something like 6. Saving this and refreshing, or going back inside the browser, we get here current turn of x, and at index 0 making a move is going to give us an x right here, and this right here is from the next log, but at this point in time when this was called, this is meant to be null. And you can see going down now, when you then call make move on a turn of O, it is going to of course give us that 6 right there. Like I said, this is going to be a point in time, so if we want to make it a bit clearer what's actually going on, let's go back inside here and actually just say game.board, and we can say .join and do a comma. So now saving this and going back inside here, we can see we get X and then we get O on the second turn. Cool. So now that is the main logic of the makeMove method, but we need to protect against when a user, for example, clicks on an already clicked on cell. So for example, if they want to make a move at index 6 twice, we don't want this to turn into an X. So saving this right now is going to give us an X right here, when really it should stay as a 0. So, or stay as an O. So going back inside here, let's actually do a condition here. We're going to say if this.board at index I, then we're going to return. So basically, if there is currently a value at index I, then we're going to return and basically cancel out the whole turn or the whole method. So now saving this and going back inside here, we can see now it remains at the original value of an O. So now let's move on to some game-winning logic. Okay, so the way the game-winning logic is going to work is essentially we're going to test whether or not there is a combination or a winning combination on the board. As we can see, the board itself has a bunch of indexes, so an example winning combination is going to be 0, 1, 2 for the top row. We've also got 3, 4, and 5. We have 6, 7, and 8, and a few more down the line. So those are all our winning combinations. So we need to define those as an array and then simply loop through those and see if we have a match across each one of those individual indexes or cells. So now let's go back inside here and make a new method called findWinningCombination. Okay, this one right here is firstly going to define a new constant containing each one of our winning combinations right here. We've got a total of 8. Like I said, I've got the source code in the description below if you want to simply copy and paste this also. And now we can simply loop through each combination. So I can say here we can say for of combination of winning combinations. Okay. We can simply then just say right here const A, B, and C is equal to combination. So this right here is simply just array destructuring. We are taking each combination right here in the loop itself. So this loop is going to run a total of 8 times for each combination right here. And each time it is going to say const A, B, and C. It is going to grab each value right here and then put them inside a constant A, B, and C. So for example, in the first iteration of 0, 1, and 2, A, B, and C is going to be 0, 1, and 2. That is just array destructuring. So now we can simply say down here, if this dot board at index A and this dot board at index A is equal to this dot board at index B and this dot board at index A is equal to this dot board at index C. So basically, this right here is quite a long if statement, but it is simply saying if there is a value at A, so basically if this cell is not null and A is equal to B and A is equal to C, so basically this check is just saying is each value the exact same? If that's the case, we've got a 3 in a row, a winning combination. We can simply return combination, which of course this combination is the winning combination. And if we don't find a match, then we can simply just return null. Quite straightforward. So now, let's do a quick test of this logic. Let's go back inside here, and we can simply just remove most of this code just for now, and we can say make move. Let's try and make a move for the 3, 4, and 5, the middle row. Okay, so let's go inside here. This will be an X, okay, this will be an O, and the next will be an X also. So let's just target O. So let's make X 0, let's make O 3. Then we can do the exact same thing 2 more times. So X is 0, let's make X something random like 7, okay? We can make O something like 4 to make us 3, then 4, and the last one here for O is going to be 5, and that'll give us a winning combination. Let's make this X something like, let's just do something like 2, for example, okay? So now right here we have 3, 4, and 5 for the O, so we should see here a winning combination. We can say console.log game.board, and also we can say logout find winning combination. Saving this will give us this right here. We get of course this board. We see that 3, 4, and 5 is in a row, so of course we get the combination right here 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now the reason why we return a winning combination like this and not just a true or false is because we want the view to be able to see these indexes and then apply a different color or a strike through, for example, once you win the game. But we'll get to that a bit later on. For now, let's finish up the logic inside the game itself. So now, let's go back inside here, do one last quick test. We're going to make this O something like 3. So of course, let's do 8. Okay, so we have 3, 4, and 8. That is not a combination, so saving this is going to give us null right here for the winning combination. So now let's finalize the game logic. Let's go back inside here, and we're going to make a new method called isInProgress. So this one is going to return true or false if the game is currently in progress. So the first check here is quite simply just going to say, if we have a winner, then the game is done, so it can't be in progress. So we're going to say here, return not this dot find winning combination. So basically, if there is no winning combination, then the game is currently in progress. But the problem with that is, this could actually be a tie. So all the turns could be made, and there will be no winning combination in the case of a tie. So we need to extend this if statement or this condition to say, and this dot board dot includes null. So basically, in order for the game to be in progress, there needs to be no winning combination, and also the board has to include a null value. Okay, and that will of course cover the case where there's going to be ties. So now, saving this right here, we can now move on to once again the make move method, and we're gonna add a few more conditions inside of here. So we're gonna say right here, if not this dot is in progress. Okay, so if the game is currently not in progress, then we don't want to proceed with the move because of course the game is done. We can't make a move if the game is done. So we're going to return right there to of course stop the execution of the function, and also with the next turn, we don't want the next turn to be made, or we don't want the next turn to be toggled if there is a winner. So we've got to say here, if not this dot find winning combination, then we're going to toggle the turn. So basically only toggle the turn if the result of this turn, okay, was not a win. And that way the view then knows, which character, had the win. And that is all for the game itself. Okay, so moving on to the view, we can simply close this one right here, and like I said, the view is going to have its own class. So I might just quickly remove all of this testing code, and just so we can be a bit cleaner, and let's just save this and go inside the JS, and we can make a new file right here called gameview.js. And like I said, this one is going to contain all of the logic for rendering out the view and reacting to updates. Okay, so right here, we can say export default class. We can call this one game view. And inside here, in the constructor, it's going to take in our root element. Okay, so right here, we can just say root. And then we can say this dot root is equal to root just to maintain a reference to that element. Okay, so now we need to create the HTML for the board and also the top header with the status and the reset button and things like that. So we can say right here, this dot root is this dot root dot inner HTML is equal to right here, using ES6 template strings with the backtick. We can simply input some HTML. So we can say div with a class of header right here and close that off, and this will be the main header. Inside here, we can say div with a class of header __ turn. So this right here, I'm using BEM, the block element modifier naming convention. You can of course name these classes whatever you like. So inside here, we can just say, for example, inside the header turn section, we can just say just for demonstration purposes, currently, we can say X's turn. Okay, cool. And then we can make another one. We can say div with a class of header __ status, and this one will contain, of course, the game status, things like the current winner, if it's in progress, and things like that. So we can just say in progress, for example. And finally, we can make a new button with a type of button and a class of header __ restart. And this one, of course, is going to be the restart button. And inside here, we can include an icon. We can say I with a class of material-icons. and put refresh inside here. So we're going to be seeing how the Google material icons are going to work very shortly, but for now, this is just going to display a button with some text. So let's just save this right here, go inside the main.js, and then we can make a new instance of the game view. So we can say let's game view equal to a new game view right here, and that's going to automatically import our class. And now we have to pass in document.getElementById and pass in the app right there, which of course is going to reference this app right here. So now saving this and going inside the browser, we get something like this. As we can see, of course, we have all of the HTML picked up and rendered out by that class. And we can see also that the icon is currently just a refresh text. So let's go to Material Icons website, and we can simply go inside here, go to the developer guide, and I'll be leaving a link to this also below. So definitely go to this website, and you can simply go inside here and copy this link, HTML, and paste it inside your head right up here, and now we can see the icon is working. If you're wondering where I got this icon from specifically, if you do a search here for refresh, we can see here the icon for refresh has that label, and the usage of course is inside here. So that is all for the HTML of the actual header itself. Let's now do some CSS to make it look nice. So going back inside here, I'm not going to dive too deep into the CSS, explanation, but quite simply, we can say a box sizing of border box just to, make it easier to deal with padding and borders, and that'll apply for every single element on the page. We can target the app itself. Let's give this a border of 1px, solid and then black. Let's give it the same width and height of 500 pixels. Okay, we can also say here, let's do a font weight of bold and a display of flex with a flex direction of column. The reason for this flex box here is so that we can have a nice structure with the header on top of the actual board or the main board section. Saving this right here gives us something like this. We can see it is all looking perfectly fine so far. We have the separation between the header and of course the rest of the app, which we're going to get to very shortly. We can now target the header itself and many different sections of that header. So we can say header right here, a display of flex, and align items of center, and a background of a dark gray being 222. The reason for this flex box is because we want every single header section to be positioned as columns, and also we want them to be centered. So saving this is going to give us this right here. We can see every element, the turn, the status, and the button are centered vertically and also next to each other. So now let's move on to styling these ones individually. Going back inside here, we can target header, then target every element inside there, a color of a light gray to make it look obviously easier to read. We can target header __ turn. So for the turn display, X or O, we can simply say here padding and make this 12px for a bit of space. We can now target the header __ status. For this one, let's do padding of 12px and a flex grow of 1 and a text align of center. So this flex grow of 1 is going to ensure that the header status, the middle section, takes up the remaining horizontal space. Let's save this and we get something like this. As we can see, like I said, the status is now taking up the remaining space. Let's move on to styling up the actual button. So back inside here, let's target the header __ button. And for this one, sorry, my mistake, this needs to be restart. So header __ restart, a display of flex, and align items of center, and a justify content of center is going to ensure the icon is in the center vertically and horizontally. Let's add a no border. Let's do no outline, and let's do no background. And lastly, a cursor of pointer to ensure that it looks like it can be clicked on. Let's save this and we get something like this. It's all looking pretty good so far. So now we might as well go back inside here and just make sure that the font family is sans serif, because of course sans serif is a bit nicer to look at when it comes to user interfaces. So there we go, it is now a sans serif font. So that is all for the header itself. Let's move on now to doing the actual board and the tiles. Okay, so back inside here in the actual JavaScript game view, we can quite simply create a new div right here with a class of board. And this one is going to, of course, contain each one of our tiles. So we can say here, div with a class of board underscore underscore tile. And this one is going to have a data attribute. We're going to say data dash index is at index 0 for the first one. It's going to go from 0 down to 8 for each tile. So now let's close this off and we can say right here, for example, let's do O. Let's copy this another 8 times, and let's make this right here 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically what's going to happen here is we're going to essentially, we're assigning each cell to a particular index. So then when you click on the tile, it is going to pass through this index into our game make move method to, of course, make that move at that index. But we're going to be seeing quite shortly how that actually works. But for now, let's keep that inside there. Now, I also want to add a modifier class to index 2. I'm going to say board tile dash dash winner. We're going to see how this works shortly also, but for now, let's keep that right there. And now, inside the browser, we get something like this. So let's use CSS Grid to, of course, lay out and display those tiles. So back inside here, let's target the board class. Okay, let's display as a grid. So we'll do board display as a grid, a background of a light gray. That'll be the space between each cell, a gap of 10 px and a padding of 10 px to, of course, create that gap, and also a flex grow of 1. That way the board is going to take up the remaining space. As we can see now, the board is only about halfway, so we can see here it's about halfway on that blue highlight. So flex grow 1 is going to ensure it takes up the remaining space. We can say here also a grid template columns of repeat and then 3 and then 1 FR. So basically it's going to be a 3 by 3 board, 3 cells with the remaining space. Same thing goes for the grid template rows, of course giving us 3 by 3. Saving this and back in the browser we get something like this. So it's all working perfectly fine so far, and obviously it's looking pretty good. So now let's style up the actual tiles. So back inside here, let's say board underscore underscore tile, and for this we can say background of just white to ensure that we cancel out that gray. We can say a cursor of pointer. Let's give this a display of flex and align items of center and a justify content of center, once again to center the actual text itself. A font size of 80px seems to work quite nicely, and also a font family of cursive just to give us obviously that cursive look for the tic-tac-toe game. And lastly, a color of just a dark gray right here. So now saving this is going to give us something like this. So now let's move on to explaining this board tile dash dash winner. So for the winner class, or the winner modifier class, this one is going to display whenever this index, or whatever index it may be, is a winning index from the find winning combination method, which we looked at earlier. So that being said, let's target board tile dash dash winner. And for this one, we can say color and make it green. So now saving this, we can see this one is now green. Of course, we're going to use JavaScript shortly to make this work. But for now, that's how it works. And lastly, we can just add right here a board tile colon hover. When you hover over the board tile, make the background just a light gray to give a different effect. And of course, it looks something like this. And it's all looking really good. So that is all for the CSS. Let's move on to finishing up the JavaScript on the view and finally connect everything all together. So going back inside here, we are going to just declare 2 more properties here. So we're going to say this.onTileClick is equal to, let's do undefined, just to make it explicit, and do the exact same thing for onRestartClick. So basically, this right here, these two properties are going to be functions eventually. So inside the main.js, we're going to define a few functions. So for example, we're going to define functions right here for both onTileClick and onRestartClick. So that being said, we're going to do this right here. We're going to say GameView.onTileClick equal to a function like this, okay, and the exact same thing for onRestartClick. We're going to be filling out these functions later on, but for now, let's keep them there. Like I said, we'll get back to these later on. Basically, these functions are going to fire off whenever these things happen. So now, we need to say, when a tile gets clicked on, we want to run the function the user passed in from here. Same goes for the restart. So let's go inside here. We're going to say this.root.querySelector_all. Okay, we're going to select here every single board__tile element. Okay, then we're going to say for each one of those, we're going to grab the tile and we're going to say quite simply this.onTileClick. Okay, we're going to run that function right up here. And we're going to say right here, tile.dataset.index. Okay, so essentially, and I'll show you how this works very shortly, but we can see here, when the tile gets clicked on, we're going to run this function, we're going to pass through the index specified inside each one of these. So, that being said, this is currently working. So, this means, if I was to now go inside here, onTileClick, and I grab the index I can say console.log tile clicked, and then pass through here I to see which tile was clicked. Let's save this right here, go back inside the browser, and it's not working. Okay, so of course, that was my mistake. Let's go back inside here and just remove this undefined. Okay, and go back inside here and try again. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. Of course, my mistake. Sorry. Okay, this needs to change. So this needs to be right here, tile.addEventListener. Okay, and when you click on the tile, then you're gonna run this function. My mistake. Sorry about that. So we can keep those the way they are, just so they're explicit, and save this. Go back inside here. Try it now. Click on here, and we get tile clicked 1. Let's do 0, let's do 4, so 3, 4, 5, etc. So now, essentially, we can hook into the view like this, and then from here, inside this function, we can actually call the game.makeMove. We're going to be doing that very shortly, but for now, let's keep it like this, just to get some visual feedback. So, let's go back inside the game, and do the exact same thing for the onRestartClick. So, I'm going to say here, this.root.querySelector. I'm going to select the board__restart button. I'm going to say addEventListener. When it gets clicked on, we're going to once again just simply say this.onRestartClick. Now, if you want to, you can just say, maybe if this.onTileClick, okay, then you do this, and the same thing works down here. If this.onRestartClick, then you do this. So basically, you're just checking if the function is actually available before trying to use it. So now, let's test this. We can say GameView console.log game is restarted. There we go. Let's save this back inside here, and let's try it again. Let's see what's going on. So header restart. My mistake. So header restart. There we go. Let's try again. Refresh, and now press restart, and we get game is restarted. Perfect. So that's all working perfectly fine. We can now move on to doing some of the logic when it comes to updating the view based on the game state. Okay, so Let's go down here. Let's minimize this right here and make a new function or new method called update. This update method is going to take in a game. So we can say game right here. And then we can define a few more methods to handle individual parts of the actual view. So for example, we can say update status. This will also take in a game. Let's do the exact same thing twice more. We can do update update turn. Okay, so update status, update turn, and lastly update the board. I might just swap these two around for consistency with the actual source code. So update turn, update status, and update board. So now we can simply call these three. This dot update update turn, pass in the game, and the exact same thing, update status, then update board. Like I said, I'm just splitting these up in order to keep things a bit more organized, but it's up to you how you want to call these or work with this. So when it comes to updating the turn, we need to simply update the turn display with the current turn. So first, let's remove the default code for this and go back inside here, and we can say this dot root.query selector. We're going to select the header turn. We're going to say quite simply text content is equal to, then passing in here game.turn, so the current turn, then say it's this person's turn. Something like this. Okay, so now we can quite simply save this and let's go inside the main.js. Okay, when the page first loads up, we're going to say right down here GameView.update. We're going to pass in the current state of the game. Let's save this. As we know, the current turn is X by default. So upon saving this, we get this right here, X's turn. Let's make this O by default. Save this, we can see we get O. So we're now sure that the actual markup here is coming from the function update turn. So now let's move on to the update status. I might just make this back to X. Okay, let's go into the update status. So for this status, it's a bit more complicated. We're going to firstly just define a new variable called status. So by default, we can just make this in progress. Okay, then we can check. We can say if game.findWinning combination. So basically, if there is currently a winner in the game, then we can say status is equal to, right here, using template strings, we can say game.turn is the winner. Okay, that is the current winner. Otherwise, if the game is not in progress, so game.is in progress, so if the game is not in progress, then it's a tie. We can say status equals it's a tie. Okay, if there is no winner and the game is not in progress, it's a tie. Then lastly, we can say this.roots.query selector, pass through here, header __ status, then say text content is equal to, right here, this status. So now let's save this, go inside the browser, we get in progress right here. I might just go back inside here and just remove this default text just for a bit of clarity. And then let's go inside the game and let's force a winner. We're going to return here early. I'm going to say return winning combinations at index 0 just to fake a winner. Let's save this and we get right here X is the winner. It's all working really well. Okay, let's go back inside here now and finish up on the game view. So we might as well just remove this board tile winner just for now, and also remove all of these O's, because of course these O's aren't actually real data. So let's get rid of this and put this back. There we go. So down here, we can go inside the update board and we can just say firstly, const winning combination is equal to game.findWinning combination. So first, we need to actually grab the current winning combination if there is any. Okay, this way we can simply add that winner class to make it green. Okay, so down here, we can now just quite simply loop through. So we can say for let I equal to 0, I is less than game.board.length, and lastly I++. So basically looping between 0 and 8 inclusively. We can then say const tile is equal to this.roots.query selector, pass through here board __ tile at data-index, then pass through here the current index. So we can say here I. So basically we're looping through each one of these tiles and we're basically indexing by the I 0 towards 8. All of these ones right here. So for each board tile, we're going to check and we're going to say first up, well actually you know what, firstly we're just going to simply say tile.textContent is equal to game.board@index_i to of course give us, the actual X or O value, and then we can check if one of these values is part of the winning combination. We can say here if winning combination and winning combination dot includes I. So like I said, if there is actually a winner, so if there is a winner present and it includes the index we're currently on, then we can just say right here tile.classList.add. We can add the board __ tile -- winner class to of course make it green or whatever you want to do to it. And then lastly, one final touch is going to be essentially by default we want every single tile to not receive this class. So right here we're just going to quite simply say tile.classList.remove, and this will just simply ensure that any previous games don't affect the current game. So remove and basically clear this class off the tile by default, then of course add it if needed. So now saving this right here is going to give us the finished view. So now it's going to be all about connecting the view to the actual model. So going back inside here, these two functions are how it's going to work. So when the user clicks on the tile, we can react to it from inside here. So we can say game.makeMove and pass in here an I. Then we can say view or game view.update and quite simply pass through the current state of the game. We can see here that the view is separate from the model, and of course these functions are going to tie them all together. Okay, and now inside the on restart click, it's quite straightforward. We can simply say once again game view.update, pass in the game, but also before this we can just say game is equal to a new game. So quite straightforward, right? So now we can keep this right here and we can save this, and now clicking on a tile gives us that X. Get O's turn, let's do it again. O, X, O, and then X. X is the winner. We can see all of those classes are being added and I can no longer make any more moves. I can now restart and we can see we are back working as per normal. So that right there is how to create a game of tic-tac-toe using pure HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Like I said, I'll be leaving the link to the code in the description below if you want to download it and check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.